night, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in the East. It has been the promise of America since before our founding that we as Americans will serve as a beacon for those seeking refuge from other parts around the world. But today, Donald Trump's Supreme Court destroyed that promise, effectively slamming our doors to those who need us most. In a pair of rulings, the Supreme Court dismantled the asylum system as we know it, permitting Donald Trump functionally to end temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of refugees from Haiti and Syria. The decision has implications for refugees from at least a dozen more countries. They dealt a strike a blow to the ability of refugees to claim asylum in this country at all. Both decisions were split 6-3 along ideological lines, with all three liberal justices dissenting. The liberal justices do not hold back in articulating their outrage and their dissent. Here's Justice Kagan on the role of race in Donald Trump's decision to end temporary protected status for certain countries. The justice writes this, quote, "The majority claims to see no evidence that race played any role in the Haiti decision, but the evidence is there, plain to see, in the president's statements, which the majority, and for that matter, his own lawyers, cannot even bear to repeat. So, here are some of those statements. Haitians in the United States, quote, probably have AIDS. And Haiti is a, quote, shithole country, which is, quote, filthy, dirty, and disgusting. And Haitian immigration is, quote, like a death wish for our country. And Haitians, along with some others, are, quote, poisoning the blood of our country. And this, quote, why is it we only take people from shithole countries like Haiti and Somalia? Why cannot we have some people from Norway and Sweden? The majority briefly replies that those remarks are not overtly racial, but it is hard to know what that means. Haitians are black, Norwegians and Swedes not so much. The statements fairly shout in their racial undertones and overtones alike that race entered into the president's resolve to remove Haitians from this country. The injustice of that decision is further compounded by the court's other decision today, which allows Donald Trump to prevent any new asylum claims whatsoever. Here's Justice Sotomayor on that ruling. Quote, the court today blesses the executive branch's decision to slam the door shut on all who are fleeing persecution, despite the detailed inspection and asylum system that Congress enacted and commands. Congress passed the Refugee Act in 1980 because it did not want this country to repeat the mistakes of its past. The consequences of today's decision are predictable. More people will die. More people will attempt to cross the border illegally, and some will make it while others will not. More people will turn back and be subjected to violence because of something they cannot or should not have to change about themselves, such as their race, their religion, nationality, or political opinion. Donald Trump's Supreme Court making a mockery of the words emblazoned on the Statue of Liberty, quote, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, is where we start today. Andrea Flores is here. She's the founder of Securing America's Promise and a former DHS official and White House advisor in the Biden administration. Also joining us, senior editor and legal correspondent at Slate, Dahlia Lithwick, is here. She's the host of the Amicus podcast. It has been a busy day for you, Dahlia. Let me start with the dissents are unbelievable, written for the moment. Sometimes we say written for history, but written for this moment. And I don't know that I've read, I know I say this every time after Dobbs or after anything shocking, but I really don't know that I've read twin dissents that register this much alarm with the individuals that make up the majority.
I think the tell in some ways is that after Justice Sotomayor read her dissent aloud from the bench, which justices don't always do, but she was, spitting mad, the almost unprecedented thing, which is Justice Alito had a dissent to her dissent. He took issue from the bench, unscripted, with what she said. And it's such a breach of the court's decorum and protocol to be like, no, you. And it really shows you, I think, that she was scraping on a nerve. And I think the other through line of these two dissents is that both of these justices are not only calling out Justice Alito in the majority for playing sort of semantic tricks in both cases with statutory language, but the real human costs, the suffering that is going to come about, and they make no bones about just calling it that.
Well, I mean, Justice Kagan also says what the justices and Trump's own lawyers won't say, that for Donald Trump, it's entirely racial. He doesn't want people from, quote, shithole countries, which is how he describes Haiti.
Right. And you'll remember when the Muslim ban was passed and we had this same completely fatuous debate about, oh, he didn't mean all the things he said and it wasn't really a Muslim ban. And the court twisted itself into pretzels to say that the words that come out of Donald Trump's mouth have no significance. And this is the same problem on rocket fuel. And to have Justice Alito in his majority just bat it away, so much so that he won't even acknowledge it, which forces, in some sense, Justice Kagan to read it into the record, to create a dissent where she says, here are the words that were said that are emblematic of what Donald Trump was trying to do. It really tells you, again, the degree to which the gaslighting is truly, truly the thing that is making, I think, particularly today, Justices Kagan and Sotomayor absolutely incandescently angry.
Because the justices who choose their words carefully chose these words, I'm going to let their words do the talking. This is more from Justice Sotomayor's dissent. Quote, what happened to the people who were turned away from the border? Those turned away from the border found themselves subject to the very persecution and crime they were fleeing. One woman who had fled Honduras after receiving death threats from gang members was beaten, cut, and knocked unconscious by an unknown man after being turned back from a port of entry. Another asylum seeker who was turned back at a port 3 times was later raped in the presence of her child. Those living in migrant camps were subjected to break-ins, robberies, and assaults, quote, facing serious harm at the hands of criminal organizations, including kidnapping, extortion, physical violence, and sexual assault. Some were murdered in Mexico while waiting for an opportunity to be processed by U.S. officials. One couple that grew discouraged after a month of waiting in a camp near the border decided to cross the river and ask for asylum once they reached U.S. soil, but they were caught in a swift current and drowned. Andrea, sending people to their deaths is precisely what Justice Sotomayor is providing evidence to prove that today's decisions do.
We didn't really even need more evidence. It's just a fact that our land border is one of the most dangerous land borders in the world because our asylum system has been in tatters really for the past decade. And this decision today just reaffirms that this court has no respect for the text of asylum law, which is pretty clear that an asylum seeker has that procedural right once they reach the border. But this issue is going to keep coming up in our politics because whether it was under President Biden, this was an issue under President Obama. This was the policy that was being challenged. So this is back from 2016. And today, President Trump has already unilaterally suspended access to asylum at the border. So this is just adding a layer that the president didn't even factually need. So that really stood out to me.
I want to read more from Justice Kagan's decision. The first one we talked about, because she also uses her dissent to put human beings at the center of today's story. So we'll follow her lead there. Consider Layla Doe, who fled Syria with her daughter in 2013 after her neighborhood was bombed. Today, Doe lives in Illinois, where she works as a behavioral technician for individuals with disabilities and cares for her elderly mother, a U.S. citizen. Without TPS, she will have to leave her mother and return to a still ravaged, violent, and dangerous country. Doe fears that as a single woman living alone, she will be robbed or even killed there, and she is afraid that her now 17-year-old daughter who has lived in this country almost all her life, will have no future in Syria because she speaks little Arabic. What, Dahlia Lithwick, do the conservative justices have to say in response to the human toll of this?
I mean, I think it's, again, Justice Alito being angry that Justice Sotomayor was upset tells you everything you need to know. In their view, this is a statutory problem with a constitutional valence, and that's what they want to address. And so we get these incredibly crabbed opinions, in one case, reading arrival to mean, again, cute wordplay about what arrival means, reading determination in the other case, cute wordplay about what that means. And this kind of hypertextual approach, which is, we're a bunch of Vulcans. This is our job to read the words of the statute, except I think, and this is so essential, what they end up doing is ignoring the explicit intent of Congress in crafting these rules, and they end up absolutely circumscribing judicial power of review. So what they do in the end is they further kneecap Congress, they further kneecap lower courts, and they elevate themselves again into this imperial judiciary that can make words mean whatever they want to mean on the day that they are deciding a case.